down on, however that expression goes, that will fit everybody. I mean, it's such a heterogeneous employees that we have. So they'll be told they don't have to do performance evaluations. There will be training on how to do these sorts of things. Right? There's no one magic way of doing that. We want them to do it in a way that works best for that union, for those set of employees, and where we can come up with a fair and objective, unbiased evaluation of people. Now, it's a lot of training to do, and so it's not going to be July 1-13. Every supervisor knows how to do this well. So it's going to be a process.
I'm sorry to continue.
Okay, these are some facts that we put together because in response, excuse me, to some misconceptions that were out there, and certainly there's a lot of room for discussion and even disagreement about a number of proposals, but there are some things that we feel are just plain factual. I've made bold a few of them. You have them all in here. And one thing we've heard is that EW employees will no longer be state employees. It's not true. They will be state employees. They're not part of the state, all the state rules for recruitment and pay and all that. But they're still in the retirement system, still in health insurance. Any employee category currently entitled to just cause will continue to have just cause standards and due process. Those protections will continue under the law. We do not have to do that for new employees after July 1, 2013 classified staff, but it's just be the wrong thing, and we're doing that. Base wages will not decrease as a result of this. We'll pay at least a living wage to non-student employees. There are currently a number of employees at the university in custodial and food services who are below the living wage as defined by the city of Madison. And we are unable to raise it because it's part of the state system and the state system will allow it. How many people would you say?
We have at least a couple hundred people that are in that situation, as Steve mentioned. Actually, there's some bargaining process as well. Pay structures did not elevate the minimums for those jobs above or at or above the living wage as defined by the city of Madison, which is calculated based on family of four. I believe it's 110% of the poverty rate. So we've been unable to raise those wages. And something that we committed to about 5 years ago with our limited term employee policy, that where we could do it, we wanted to make sure employees were at least making the living wage. And this will allow us to do that.
Okay, I think we also have a question inside here.
I was just curious, is Madison's living wage different than the state living wage?
The state really doesn't have the concept of a living wage in regard to what we've done on this campus. They go by the compensation structures that are embedded within the state compensation plan and in past labor contracts. It's a concept that we went along with the city as far as creating a living wage, and we've tried to certainly abide by that. We have abided by when we've had the flexibility to get the people to the living wage. And many of our employees are certainly above the living wage. And there are many blue-collar employees in blue-collar positions, food service, custodian, that right now the minimum of the pay structure is we will, with this flexibility, be able to raise that. That's something that we are looking, or we're going to do July 1st of 2013.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Still break.
Some more facts. Right to collectively bargain will be maintained and not taken away from employees. The right to collectively bargain was severely diminished by the Governor's Act 10. So while those employees still can collectively bargain, the standards and requirements to become a representative of a labor representative is so high that most unions didn't try to do it, and the scope of bargaining is extremely limited. Nonetheless, all of the employees who currently have it will have the right to have that bargaining. Governance rights will not be diminished. We've heard some concerns that shared governance will be diminished. We are adding to that the university staff that provide that governance under policy that would be similar to what the academic staff governance is currently. I already mentioned that there were stakeholders, representatives from all stakeholder groups. Another thing that we've heard is that we're creating a human resources empire in terms of human resources. I think the other one was floating. We are not adding very many people, if any at all, because there are some things that in this plan we're required to do more of, particularly training. We really don't have enough people to do that kind of training for all supervisors right now, but we may be able to reorganize and shift some resources within our office when we have vacancies. But it's possible we could need a small number, 2, 3, I don't know, I guess I'll just leave it at a small number. Okay. I'm going to get into some topic areas here. This one is a very big one, and I don't have everything in the plan here. There are 155 specific recommendations, trying to hit the highlights, in the plan, and the highlights of the highlights here. Starting July 1 of 2013, we're changing the way academic staff and classified staff are defined. We're using the Fair Labor Standards Act, the federal law that provides criteria for dividing employees into those who are not subject to overtime, they're salaried, they're professional, administrative, and those who are hourly employees and subject to overtime. So academic staff will include all of those who are exempt or salaried, and classified will now be renamed to university staff, and those will be the hourly positions. There are about 1,400 employees currently in the classified service who are salaried. They will have a choice as to whether they want to move to academic staff or not. When their position becomes vacant, we will fill it as academic staff. There are benefits differences, and it could be the time in your career. It might be better to be academic staff, it might be better to be classified. That's why people have a choice. And we're providing governance for university staff.
And that choice that Steve mentioned, it also preserves the ability to collectively bargain because as the law is on the book, academic staff cannot collectively bargain. Classified staff can collectively bargain, so allowing employees the choice of whether they want to become academic staff or stay and go into university staff. They can decide if they want to participate in collective bargaining, they can do that by staying or going to university staff.
Could you guys talk about how you intend to provide governance rights to university staff, like what mechanism you're going to go through for that?
Well, we've had a lot of discussions about that. Actually, the last number of forums, the last couple of days, we talked about that we want to look at the way that academic staff governance came to be, as well as we have a governance body. Although it's not statutory governance, we have a group called the Council for Non-Rep Classified Staff. It used to be represent about 600 employees. That group was created about 10 years ago, and they are viewed as a governance group for those non-represented classified employees. So we want to look at how those organizations, those governance groups perform, and then figure out, all right, how do we form the university staff governance, certainly having employees involved in shaping that, and we're assuming that some sort of election on the front end, so those individuals that get elected can come together and form that governance group, including creating the bylaws and all those types of things. And we want that group to get up and running within the next couple of months, because there are a number of things that affect university staff that's identified in the plan, that need to be put in place by July 1st of 2013. So we want that governance body to provide their input and their collaboration during the development of those various things. And so that's something that we need to start up quite quickly. So we'll be working through those issues as far as how that governance body comes into being.
And are you guys going to be hoping to amend state statute to give them governance rights, similar to how faculty, students, academic staff have it in Chapter 3609? Or are you planning on doing a policy revision, or how you hope to actually provide them these governance rights?
The plan calls for the creation of region policy to provide governance rights for university staff, and those would be based on the same type of provisions that are in the state statute. We thought that going to the legislature and asking for policy or statutory changes to create this, it probably isn't the best time to go and ask for that in the legislature. But it's something that certainly we want to review and pursue in the future. But we believe that we can accomplish the same thing that the active staff and faculty have as far as enjoying the governance rights. We can do that through region policy.
Any other questions? Sorry. Are there any questions before break right here?
I just want to ask you, in terms of time, I mean, already this is probably going to go beyond the 30 if I go through all of this. What is your preference? Do you want me to go through the topics? Would you like me to skip more to the end and then entertain questions? How would you like to do this?
It'd probably be better to get I mean, obviously, whatever. I don't want to miss anything, obviously, but to get to some like the main ideas and then save a lot of time to answer questions as well. Anything specific that people have that they didn't get, because we do have the copy that was passed around. So if you have questions, please look through that as well.
Okay, so a little more high level.
Yeah, but obviously whatever you need, like dig in wherever
Okay.
feels necessary.
All right, well, we'll see how I do it now. All right, let's see. All right, compensation and job titles. So we're recommending that we take an approach for compensation that is, I would say, market informed. We want to stay competitive with the market, but the market is going to be varied by position. With whom do we compete to get the best employees? That defines the market. And we're going to balance that with internal equity and also keeping track of cost of living. A lot of these areas of great concern to a number of our employees. There's great concern that if we go straight market, then we have a corporate model. Not everybody is in the market, or that we'll be comparing some people to markets, local markets that are not very favorable, particularly say in food service or the custodial, where we might have some local employers paying bare minimum wage. We don't think that's right. We're going to compare with local public entities such as school districts and municipalities for say that group of people. Some employees we compare nationally, faculty certainly nationally. We want to, as I mentioned before, reward performance. We need to do a what's called a title and total compensation analysis. We've got 7,000 academic staff in hundreds of titles. The ranges are all out of date. It's time to take a look at all of the titles and ranges and look at the market and try to update them. That's going to happen in 2013, 14, and will probably take the entire year. It's a big process involving all the stakeholders and government bodies.
And I just want to add that there are some of the other Big Ten institutions that are going through that same kind of process. In Ohio State, where they're going to do a complete title and compensation analysis because they find themselves in a similar situation where they need to really look at all the titles and the compensation structures. So we are not alone as far as jumping in to do such an analysis. So certainly that's going to require quite a bit of effort.
Does those institutions also use around that technology?
They certainly have used consultants, but I don't believe it's been Huron. They've used consultants, and actually, Ohio State is a little bit ahead of us in regards to putting a request for proposal on the street as far as getting vendors to basically put forward their proposals and those types of things. I don't believe they've accepted, or I should say, they've chosen the vendor yet. So that's good. They're a bit ahead of us.
But as long as you brought up Huron, so that the elephant in the room, I've heard from some people, Huron is the consulting company that's helping us on this. And by helping us, is we have one person from Huron that's working with us on this, and he's been invaluable. There's been some concern expressed that Huron is just making work for themselves, and they'll get the next step of this. So that's absolutely not so. There will be a request for proposal that will go out. People will submit bids. There'll be a team that reviews the bids, and I fully expect, I don't know that process very well, that there will be representatives from governance or other stakeholders on that. And I don't even frankly know if Huron would submit a bid. I don't think that this is their known area of expertise. So I would actually be surprised, but we'll go through that process.
So I was wondering if you could take that a little more basic level. Why do you need to?
Okay. It's an undertaking that requires some expertise. People who've done this before, who know how to do it. It can be very technical. We would need that expertise. It's what everybody does. We just don't have it ourselves to do it. Now, you can hire, or you can contract with a vendor to do everything, and it costs everything around money. Or you can contract with them to do more, providing the expertise, and we do all the work. That's what we'll do in this Wisconsin way. So it'll be on the lower side compared to a place like Ohio State and some of those other places.
And can I just add that we have various folks that work in our offices that do have some compensation expertise, but they do not have this level of expertise to do a complete study of our 16,000 positions and compensation structures and such. Certainly, as Steve mentioned, working with governance and working with us as far as the various things that we've done. We do not have the capacity to do that coming from the office.
Danny, question.
Talked about how Ohio State University is in a spot in regards to their HR and trying to make that system more efficient. And I know that they recently also marketing services. Probably because it's difficult for them to pay market competitive salaries to those folks in the local market. If that would be the case here, is that spot the university with them with the contract? You also still deal with the local market, maybe difficult for the university to pay a similar wage for those fee spots when the university would consider contracting out services.
Well, as far as we've heard that a lot in the forums, as well as discussion, and we have no plans. Actually, I talked to Vice Chancellor Gazelle about this just the other day. We do not have any plans to contract out from facility services or in those things. This plan is certainly not a proposal to try to do that. That should be associated with the HR design plan. I do know a little bit about that Ohio State marketing situation. I'm not. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I did hear about it. It's my understanding that it has more to do with the cost of the land and all the other things as far as regarding parking. And I can't remember the huge amount of money. I believe it was a British firm or a British company that bought the parking structures for hundreds of millions of dollars. And we certainly, at the time, haven't heard any type of discussion about us doing something similar.
But we're proud to say we have nothing to do with parking. It's bad enough saying we're human resources.
Yeah, Libby.
I was just curious because I think part of the really interesting part of the years ago, they have research curious if there was any coordination with like a public affairs department or like, area you like to have campus develop like a system person. And like going off of that, what exactly the terms involvement what I guess I'm curious also like the coordination if there was any students going to have students like student organization and I'm pretty sure they use that.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that.
We have not heard that.
So there's a couple things going on. There's the administrative efficiency initiative that is under Chancellor Gazelle, and they are using Huron consultants, and this is something that a lot of universities have done. How can we do things administratively more efficiently so that we can save some money and can be used on something else? We are using Huron, but it's not part of that. Ours is not an efficiency effort. One of the other things you said, Steve's point, the law that authorized or requires the university to create its own personnel system also requires the rest of the system to create its own personnel system, so that we'll have two. And we've spent a lot of time in a lot of different levels and ways to coordinate with the other HR plan or system that they're coming up with, because there's certain areas where we had to be the same. Titles, for example, we have to have the same definition of academic staff as they do. So there are a number of areas where we're the same. And in fact, on this title and compensation study that we have to do, we will partner with them to work together on it. So we'll only have to pay half the cost of that and work together. I don't know if that captured, but if I left some stuff out there. But yeah.
Any other questions?
Employee benefits, this was going to be really short. The team recommended a lot of change to benefits like vacation and sick leave and so on. And it's really complicated stuff, a lot of controversy, a lot of people feeling like theirs was changing, not to their benefit. And so we decided it was important enough and it made sense to put off until we do this total compensation analysis and analyze it during that, because it really is a form of compensation. So we've punted on the benefits. And Mark's going to talk about this slide.
The next area is we need to implement a university staff layoff policies. Because right now those are embedded in Chapter 230, so we need to go forward and do that. Is this an issue that folks have heard about? As far as questions about it? What have you heard, Ken?
I've heard that, well, it's different. Mostly it's not about a specific business. We don't think that they would by informalizing, but informally reduce the number of leave and decrease job security. So it's not like the data that, for instance, I think it's the classified staff is academic staff would be given, the university staff is the same. One of the good stuff, the lower standard.
What we tried to do is create consistency between the academic staff and the university staff title. And so we've had to make some adjustments in regard to the current practice, which is the current policies for classified staff. The first area, as far as right now, it's only required that a classified employee be given 15 days notice of a layoff situation is occurring. Now, in reality, would we ever give 15 days? No, we usually give much more time to allow employees to understand what's happening and use the various options. But we're increasing that to 60 days. So we're going 4 times more than the current, actually, what's required in Chapter 230 in the state statutes. So that is an increase in what we got today. But in another area that we made an adjustment as far as the current classified, that seniority will still be the primary factor if the layoff needs to occur. But there will be other factors that may come into play, so that seniority may not be the only factor, such as if someone has a certain skill set that other employees don't have, that employee wouldn't necessarily be the one that gets laid off. But again, seniority would be the primary factor. That is indeed the same way that layoff activities occur for academic staff. Again, trying to make things more consistent. As far as right now, classified employees, if they get laid off, there's a mandatory placement that if a job opens up in that specific title, that they would be automatically placed in that job. The plan calls for eliminating that mandatory placement, but does require that an interview be provided to that employee, as well as expanded outreach, or I should say, expanded placement services for that employee, which would include everything from resume writing to job interviewing skills and those types of things. Again, similar to what occurs for our academic staff employees. Then the layoff group, right now the layoff group, when a layoff occurs, let's take College of Letters and Science. When a certain title is identified, a position is identified for elimination based on budget, usually it's a budgetary issue. Let's say it's in Department of Chemistry, that position gets identified. Then the layoff group is the entire College of Letters and Science. So it might very well be that the position's being eliminated in the chemistry department, but the individual with the least amount of seniority is in the English department. And that's the individual then that would be laid off. You can imagine, as far as the issues where the person in chemistry then would move to the position in the English department, then the person in the English department would be laid off. Certainly that affects more people when we have layoff activities instead of less. And so what we proposed as a plan was that it would be similar to what we have in the academic staff area, where layoff groups would be defined at the time of appointment by the operational area. So it might be the lab, it might be a work unit where that layoff group would be determined. So that certainly is a change. We're getting a lot of feedback on that, as far as that some people have some anxiety about that as far as making those changes. But that is the reason why we are putting that forward, to make the layoff process more consistent across employee groups. Questions about that?
Just clarify.
It's fine.
We're talking about it, this whole thing as a proposal. And so can you just clarify what's left in the process in terms of, these are all the recommendations that come together, but you're still just proposed, right? Or not?
Yes, what we put forward, and Steve talked about the process we've gone so far, that we worked through so far, as far as the work teams making recommendations, the project team synthesizing those recommendations, and then coming forward with the plan, the strategic plan. That now is a situation where we're going to various stakeholder groups, including ASM, talking about the plan, getting feedback from the stakeholder groups. Your constituents would provide you with feedback so that we can provide it to us. Certainly going through to the governance bodies and others to get that feedback, and then based on that, making any modifications that we feel should be made, and our executive sponsors, which would be the provost, the chancellor, the provost, and the vice chancellor for administration and finance, that they would make that decision about what goes forward to the Board of Regents in the beginning of December for the plan. And then in the early spring, I should say, the winter, early spring, we need to go to the legislature, the Joint Committee on Employment Relations, and get it approved. Now, what components need to go to those bodies, the Board of Regents and the legislature, we're still working that through, because as Steve mentioned, there are many of these things that are being proposed we can do today. We don't need legislative approval, we don't need Board of Regents approval. So we're figuring out what types of things, certain statutory changes, the various aspects as far as Board of Regents policy that we're going to need those things approved by those bodies. But that's all coming together at the end of this year, as far as, and early next year, as far as the approval process.
Skip for the next slide.
So you can see in the various things that last, the moving forward aspects. Now, I want to go back to the job security for a couple of other things. And next slide, that one of the things that is being proposed right now, classified employees, when they transfer between jobs, if they are not successful, they would go back to the job that they left on a mandatory basis. And again, because of consistency as well as situations that arise where what happens is the college and schools will have actually put in place policies to hold those jobs open for 6 months to see it, to make sure that that employee is successful before they fill the job. But obviously that creates a hardship in the department. It creates a hardship for the employees in that unit because the jobs don't get filled, so those employees in the unit that employee is left have to do that function because they're not able to fill it. And so we did, in the proposal, take out that option, I should say, that mandatory placement of people if they are not successful and they move to another job as far as the probationary period. That doesn't mean that the supervisor, as far as or the department chair where the employee left, can't take them back. They certainly can. It's just not a mandatory situation. And so the other aspect of job security, we need to develop a new appeal process, grievance process for university staff, certainly working with new university staff governance to create those policies, procedures, and processes. And you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, going back to that, and you mentioned it
Oh,
on the
sorry.
I was curious, you said that you'd be working with Regents University and talking about this. I'm curious, will you should be doing that, or like who's going to be doing that? Does the school that endorse it, or who's going to do that? Because it is like a budget season 2, and I'm curious, because everyone only have a certain capacity, right? Everyone has a capacity, and obviously, demanding funding for our university is a priority because we're consistently not getting enough from the state. So, is this a priority? And I guess where does that take? How does our capacity to effectively advocate for budget needs? How does it take away from that? Because I don't understand how it's going to be
Well, as far as how this process will work, our executive sponsors will be the ones that take this forward to the board of regents. They will be the ones that are working with the legislators as far as the various aspects of this. Certainly there is a budgetary component to this as far as the compensation plan that's part of that. And so as far as sequencing that, how that budget process works, Vice Chancellor Bazell, who is an expert in the budget area, he's obviously going to be working that through as far as how these things get sequenced. And if you're asking whether this is going to take precedence over what the budgetary aspects or vice versa, well, certainly the budgetary aspects are very, very important, and they'll be joined together as far as the sequence of those going forward. That certainly will be our executive sponsors, again, Chancellor, Provost, and Vice Chancellor.
Just to clarify, there's no money being asked for in this. There's no money that this. Mark mentioned the compensation plan or the pay plan. That's part of the normal budget process where the Board of Regents will go to Joker and say, we think we need this amount of money for pay plan. This has absolutely no money associated with it. We're not asking Joker for it. These are compensation tools that when we have money, we can use it. So there should be no conflict at all with all the other budgetary priorities.
This part of, I guess, some of the worry that I have from short compromises that are made sometimes, or deals that are struck, about the university lobbying or advocating for flexibilities at the expense of other things. And to me, to be perfectly honest, the most important thing is funding. So I was just kind of
Well, we've had a lot of discussions about that if we try to pull out certain things approved by the legislature, does that mean that they're going to say, okay, yeah, you can have that, but for that, we're going to reduce this? And so there's been a lot of discussions about that to make sure that we don't jeopardize funding with the things that we're doing through this process.
This is going back to the question that Jamie had. When I read over the plan that you guys have released, It doesn't actually look like policies and procedures to me. It looks more like a general overview, which I'm assuming was probably intentional at this stage of presenting it to the campus. Do you guys know when actual policy and procedural language is going to be produced so that we can actually see the policies that are going to be put forward?
Well, you certainly, and you're exactly right. This was not meant to put forward policies and procedures and all these types of things. It was meant to be a general framework as far as the new structure and the various aspects of that structure. All of that has to be done as far as the policies, procedures, processes, and certainly as things as things get approved, then we certainly need to do that. There are some things that there's a slide later on that talks about what we have to put in place by July 1st, 2013, which includes all the aspects for the classified staff, which is being new university staff being created as discussed. But all the procedures and such in those areas have to be created by July 1st. I talked about the layout policy procedures, the grievance processes. There's also we're going to need to create a transitional compensation structure for university staff because, as discussed, the class and comp study, the total compensation and job title study won't be completed for a year and a half or so. So we're going to need to develop these transitional compensation structures to get us from July 1st, 2013, until we have a new compensation structure as well as titles. And so those are the types of things that we need to create in the next 6 to 8 months. So there'll be a lot of areas in those areas we're going to need to create policies and procedures that govern those aspects. And as mentioned, we certainly will be working with the governance bodies as we go through that and getting the governance involved in all those things that need to occur.
Yeah, I mean, so more of what I was trying to get at was what is going to be really the time, because when you go to the Board of Regents and to Joker, you're going to have specific policies because that's what they're going to want to see. And so I'm more wondering what's going to be the time frame between when you release those specific policies and when you present it, because broad discussions are good and all, but we've been having broad discussions for the 2.5 years that I've been on campus about this. So personally, I think it's time to start getting down to actually the specifics, because the devil is always in the details. And so I guess it's more of a request to the work teams to have it out so that there's adequate amount of time for the governance groups to look at the specific policies and allow us time to digest and understand those policies.
Yeah, and certainly that's what we'll be doing. But as far as the actual, we're talking about personnel policies and procedures, there are many of those that we don't believe will be needed when we go to the Board of Regents and when we go to the Joint Committee on Employment Relations. There certainly will be some broad Board of Regent policies that we can create. I talked about governance, I talked about some other things, but the specific policies of how various things happen for all the intricacies of the personnel area, we don't believe that by January we're going to need those. Now, I'm not saying that we want to have just-in-time policies either, but we believe that during the late winter, or I should say, the January, February, March, April timeframe is when we'll really be developing a lot of those drafts and working with governments on those things. Thanks.
I can do the next slide really fast. I apologize for not parking this thing. So
thank you for coming.
Okay, recruitment is going to be simple. That is, we're going to make it more efficient and effective. Right now, a lot of the recruitment is mandated by state law in some very old and bureaucratic ways. So we want to make it more efficient while still being hiring people based upon merit, not having some sort of proven system. This one we've already talked about. This one is training supervisors to be supervisors. Too many of the people who supervise here really not interested in doing it, don't know how to do it, don't do it well, and so we need to improve that. significantly. And diversity, inclusion, and employee engagement. So we're working with Damon Williams on establishing a diversity workforce plan, not just for students, but also at our workforce. And we need to create and monitor measures of diversity, and we're going to conduct a campus-wide survey, what's called employee engagement and inclusion survey. It's beyond what used to be called satisfaction surveys. Are people engaged? Are they feeling included? Are they feeling marginalized? And so on. And then we can identify where and address those problems and make improvements. Not going to talk about the next slide. Next slide is actually a repeat. Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you just define what you mean by diversity? There's like, what exactly, like, racial parents or like religion or what exactly?
Yeah, well, certainly all of the areas that are required that are, let's say that you can't discriminate on the basis in lawsuit and all of those. But the work team has really recommended a very broad notion of diversity, including diversity of thought. It also includes people who are first generation college educated. There's a number of things. Now, many of those you can't measure in any real way. So sometimes you wind up falling back, just about measuring, you're falling back on important, certainly, race and ethnicity and gender. But we're trying to make it bigger than that. If you want to read that, feel free. We have, what things were in that little solar system and how we think it addresses that. But we're not going to go through that now. And then slide more. Mark, you really covered, I should say, and next one is moving forward. And then the last slide, and I think this may, I hope this goes partly to your point over there about down here. Extremely important, stakeholders be involved throughout the planning and implementation, talking about the request for a proposal for a study, compensation analysis, governance involved, talk about what will happen during that, what's the final governance involved. So it's all throughout, since I had used that phrase a lot, the devil is in the details. We need to be transparent and open and collaborative. And then last thing is, when we've been going around on campus, and we've been doing a lot of this, we're asking people not to give us individual input. We got a lot of that in the spring, but now we want governance and stakeholder input. So you see we're asking academic staff to go here, classified staff can go here, or through the Labor Management Advisory Committee. Students go through ASM, and I believe that goes directly to Kevin. Is that right? Kevin set up a separate email account. And
shorter, right?
It is kind of long. Kevin has been a great representative of yours and the committee, I must say. And very entertaining as well.
Is there any contact information that you can provide us if we want to get in contact with you with additional questions?
Sure. You can, I'm Steve Lund, and Mark Walters, certainly in the directory, through Kevin if you like, but either of us directly is fine. Thank you.
Other questions in general about HR design? Anything else? Ask away, they're here. Will you be available by email as well? So if there's questions I can forward them as well. Okay.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
In the directory. And I apologize for not taking so much of your time, but I'm really glad that you're willing to do this. This is a big deal for the campus. So,
thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to move back into the rules. Thank you. Motion to move back into the rules in a second. All in favor, move back into the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, back into the rules. Okay, moving on, we are into open forum. Any member of the ASM shall have the right to speak in the open forum. Members of the ASM who are not officers of the ASM should take precedence over officers and appointees. Non-members of the ASM may be granted the opportunity to speak by majority vote in the student council. Each speaker may speak once for 3 minutes, and the open forum is limited to 45 minutes unless by 2/3 vote to extend it. So, first on the list we have Mike, and I'm not even going to attempt to butcher your last name. Is there a Mike Imbroglio?
Oh,
So
you could make it,
Oh.
Laura Peterson.
Are you a student?
Yeah.
Okay. So without objections, are there objections like this woman to speak?
What is the mention?
Down point.
What's she here to speak on?
HR design.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. So you can go up there, you can stand there, whatever you want, but that works. So you have 3 minutes as soon as we begin.
Hi everybody, I'm labor on campus. So I'm with local Woods City One and represent all the custodians, food service, and the grounds department. And I wanted to give you kind of an idea of our point of view of what's going on with the HR fund. There was one labor representative on each of the committees, and they represented close to 5,000 people. So it was not an easy task to get our voices heard on some of these meetings, and so some of the recommendations we find a lot of concerns with. We're really excited about the living wage, bringing everyone up, because it's very hard to get a lot of people on campus who can't do that on a regular basis because they can't afford to do their things. And people who choose between healthcare which is not appropriate for the custodians going to the trash. And so we like that. One of our biggest concerns is that they're bringing everyone up to that living wage. There's a lot of people who make that or very close to that who are at higher skill level than the lowest paid people, and they're not going to get an increase. So I have a coworker who's been here for 12 years who's going to get a 3-cent raise, and the guy who got hired a month ago is going to get a 91-cent raise, even though he's on a benefit firm. So that's one of our big concerns that hasn't yet been solved. And to give you an idea of kind of what employees face on this campus, we have a second shift custodial crew, like the over section of building and the supervisor, who literally told the employees that they could not acknowledge each other as they passed one another in the hall. You cannot say hi to your coworkers, you cannot ask questions, you cannot discuss what your work is, or if you have a problem you need help, you have to go to the supervisor. We had another employee who was suspended for 3 days because they went to lunch early by 1 minute. And management acknowledged that it was 1 minute and that the classroom he was cleaning the clock was fixed. But they still sent him home without pay for 3 days. And so one of our biggest concerns is how these policies will be implemented, because there's not really a standard of how employees are dealt with in this campus. We're currently eligible for a merit increase as a one-time bonus check, but there has not been clear communication about how that is being implemented across campus, and most blue-collar employees have no idea. So our biggest concern is communication with employees. I think we're clearly laid out. Typically with transfers right now, you have the right to return if you get a position, and I think that's right. One of the major issues with that is a lot of times jobs are not clearly defined, and supervisors mislead employees about what their job duties are. So I've had people come in and work at the grounds department, and they said they're going to be doing something in 3 days, and they're like, I can't do this job. This is not what I was supposed to do. And so I not have the right to put this on. And we will not have the education a lot of these people to know how to speak English well. We have a lot of Spanish among the Tibetan employees on campus that have to speak their communication. And
I'm sorry, the speaker's time expired. So second objections extended speaker's time. Hearing none.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about what's going on campus with the all folks now.
Yeah, other questions, speaker? Yes, Chairman Allen.
I guess what can we do for you? That sounds something ridiculous, but like what are you looking for from us?
You guys do have a voice in this, and so exercising that voice is really important, and being conscious of just kind of what's going on with employees. Right now, you guys have more power than we do because you guys have governance and we do not.
So we do rely on the stakeholders to kind of work with. And so maybe look at some of these issues and policies from the standpoint of non-students, of how it would affect a low-wage worker who's here at 2 a.m. and taking garbage.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, thank you for coming.
Representative Wheeler?
Thank you for coming. My first question is for employees who are already hired from the university who are looking at a summer job or even during the interview process. Are you aware of is there any kind of advocacy type of program to make sure that this person potentially is not well educated or doesn't have good English speaking skills, but has someone to help them as they're going through the job process to make sure that they do understand the job roles and responsibilities of the job that they're accepting?
I know a lot of people go through the Workers' Rights Center, the Workers' Community Groups within our group to come to work together. And UW does have translators available. But it's hit or miss depending on the department.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes. Are you aware of any structural requirements to make sure that employees are informed of assistances that might be available to them?
One of the big things is, particularly for blue collar, you do not have computer access and you do not have computer literacy. And so the UW relies on a lot of things like, as a new employee, you're supposed to attend something called Benefits 101, and I was never told about it and I never attended it. Because my supervisors and my HR staff never said anything about it, and I just kind of guessed about how I was signing up for my benefits. And I'm a college graduate. I'm not someone who can't use a computer. And it's a huge concern, is that people just don't know what's out there. There's a lot of resources for employees to use, but they have no idea that they exist, and management isn't going to recommend them, because honestly, a lot of supervisors don't know they exist.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, especially in light of what you just said about the supervisors aren't even aware of things that their employees could benefit from. Is there anything in place with their current structure that provides for supervisor training? I did hear that was something mentioned.
Yeah, there is a mandatory supervisor training, but whether or not they listen,
Thank you.
Director Gardner?
Yes. Thank you again for coming. I'm wondering about the appeals process that was discussed for bringing grievances like this forward. So do you feel that what you've seen presented today and perhaps before, that this updated appeals process would address some of those concerns?
We've never operated in a shared government system. There's no framework at all for us to how we would operate. I know a lot of people in academic staff do not like their appeals process and do not think it's legitimate. Right now, we file agreements with human resources and management, and that's how our grievances are heard, or an appeal on a discipline, something like that. So it's really up in the air. One of our biggest concerns with governance is that as blue-collar employees, we don't get to stay there. And supervisors don't like us to be gone because they don't consider these types of things part of our job. And so there has to be a huge cultural shift to allow us to actually operate a shared governance structure.
Do you have a follow-up? Yes, sir. Are there further questions of the speaker? Yes, Representative I'm playing.
I want to ask a question on the presenters
You can just ask to yield, and we can, without objection, we can yield to them. Sure. Would you like to do that? Or?
Yes, after the presenters.
Okay, so are there further questions then? Representative Megan.
We have a website. It's ASME Local 171. It's AFSCME. And we have a contact form on there, so you can email us.
Do a follow-up. Are there further questions, speaker? Representative Whitpander?
I just have a, I guess, point of
Sure, I'm one.
like to not get into like the debate sort of thing. Would there be a way to like facilitate a conversation so that it's not like probably going back and forth? Because I don't know if that's like happening.
Not very easily, to answer your question, not very easily. We don't have a forum for that really. But we could, so obviously we could discuss this, after the meeting or through email as well. If they have like individualized questions. Would you like to yield to?
Yes, could I yield to time to the HR reason people who are here to answer questions?
Could you like yield like specific questions? We don't waste.
Oh yeah,
that way,
the
we use
question
up more
I
time.
had is in reference to the discussion with the speaker who was here talking about being able to go to shared governance responsibilities or like groups during work hours. Clearly I'm not paid to be here, so I don't know, what is it like in academic staff? Do they get, can they attend shared governance bodies on the clock, like during paid time, or their salaries, it doesn't matter? Can you explain how that might be translated to the proposed university staff?
Are there any objections yielding to the gentleman who spoke earlier? Here next.
I can speak on the academic staff, except about CNCF. On the academic staff, you hit the point on the head in that they're all salaried employees. And so being on the clock is not quite the same, but it happens during the daytime, most of the governance bodies, and they go. Now, some have more difficult time than others, particularly if they're on research grants, because the federal government doesn't like grants, people to do any work other than their grants, so it's a little tricky area there.
The council for non-classified staff, their past history, they also were 95% salaried employees, so it's similar to that staff. But in my mind, as far as the university staff governance, I would see that operating in some ways, not completely, in some ways, to how we've had some of the labor provisions within the contracts, part of identifying that employees that participated in that governance body, that they would be given the ability to go to these various things during work time, and that their college or division would be required to release them for those types of activities. But I'm just speaking about what I think how it would come about. So that all those things need to be worked through. But in my mind, that employees certainly should be able to do their governance activities in pay status.
Are there further questions for the speaker? Chairman Allen?
Yeah. So obviously, I really appreciate your coming. I was wondering if you'd be interested in setting us, obviously going back to the other workers, we'd be happy to, use our forum as students. I'll echo your concerns. Could you bring us something more, or maybe email us like a list of like concrete things that we can look at, that we can, because we can't just say to the HR redesign people, we're concerned about this and this when we don't know what specifically we're concerned about. Like, you know what I mean? Could you just like more specific, like send us something that's more specific so we can look into it and then, go to them with more specific points to further lend a hand. Would that be? And then,
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Your follow-up?
No, thank you.
Further questions to the speaker? Director Gardner.
Privilege to request that full list is sent to the student council this year.
I was just going to give my card so you can give it to me. I can forward it on this. So, other questions to the speaker? See none. Thank you very much. And next up we have, I'm sorry again, Eleni. Okay. Eleni, okay, sorry. Eleni?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 minutes as soon as we can. No, you'll 3 minutes as soon as we can.
Okay, so my name is Eleni. I'm a grad student and right here, I'm also a grad employee. I'm a teacher and I'm a researcher. So Kevin also is similar. We straddle a lot of roles from the university. I'm in the School of Education. And educational policy is something that I think about a lot. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm here talking to you all today. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of the TA perspective on this topic right now. This is something that this type of performance is, this plan is something that is similar to a lot of other higher ed institutes around the country. As Steve mentioned, there's a lot of other peer institutions that the university compares itself to. And that may give us pause to try to figure out how we can do better to align ourselves to those institutions. I'm going to ask you all to think that that's not enough today. It's not so much the problem of what the people or others are doing, the problem is what we're doing here. And a human resources plan should consider what our biggest resources are, and that's us. And that's how we treat our employees, and that's how we treat our students, and it's how we prioritize the mission of our university, which is research and education and service. And the TAA is concerned about the ambiguity in the plan, about how issues of internal equity will be weighed against issues of merit and performance, and market influences. And though we've gotten, we've had some great conversations about how we can hope at some point that employees will have cost of living raises, adjustments, so that the people who aren't making a living wage will get a living wage, and the people who are barely making a living wage can get an increase for the cost of living raises. I think that that's not enough to say it might happen. We need to know that that will happen before we shift around our flexibility so that we can attract high profile faculty who make a lot of money to stay here. We need to make sure that the people who don't have the option to go anywhere else can stay here forever. And I take the position that if we're really concerned with retaining and developing our staff, we invest in them from the bottom up. And if we're interested in eliminating hierarchies between the different classes of employees, let's not enforce those hierarchies. Let's not institute a system of performance pay where some people, where those of us, where a few people get paid a lot, and the rest of us are sort of scrambling, trying to elbow out the next guy so we can get a little bit of a raise. That's not the way to make a work environment a place to be. Like, we've all been in those kind of environments where you just tell the guy next to you is trying to figure out how to make himself look better. That's not about that's not how it should go. And there are hierarchies here. You know, we have faculty, we have staff, academic staff, classified staff, students. And so it is a real problem.
I'm sorry, speaker's time is up.
Motion to extend by 3 minutes.
So motion is extend by 3 minutes and a second. Are there any objections to extending speaker's time? Hearing none, please continue.
Okay, basically, I think that we should be really concerned about how we're going to prioritize equity with these market conditions. We need to have a plan. We need to be told sort of there will be balance isn't good enough. We want to know how. We have limited resources in the state. We don't have a lot of money. So there's going to be tough choices, and we need to have a little bit more support from this plan, this framework, that these will be the priority, not just among many elements. Furthermore, the TA is fairly concerned about issues of performance pay for work, that a lot of the work that we do, which is teaching. How do you evaluate what's a good teacher? This is something that people don't know how to do. The teachers in Chicago went on strike about this. How do you know, for work that we do that's really collaborative, how do you determine what one person's output is when the work that they do requires, working with the people around them? So the idea, we don't have a clear understanding of what performance is, what merit is, and I think that it's a framework of a plan, but I think we can do a lot better. We can have a framework that really gives the University of Wisconsin what it's supposed to be, and that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Other questions, the speaker? Chairman Allen.
I'll ask you the same question as the previous speaker. Obviously, you're looking for more information. How can we, I hate the phrase, what do you want from us? But I guess what can we do to assist you in getting that information or in getting what you need?
Sure. That's a great question. So part of it is just getting familiar with what the plan is and what it's going to be doing, and asking these critical questions about what are these definitions that we're being told the university should be more flexible. Well, what does that mean? We need to start, part of it is just starting by asking some of these questions and not necessarily giving a carte blanche approval without knowing what some of these things are going to mean for us. I think, as Steve mentioned, a really important thing is going to be making sure that shared government is part of the big study that will happen after July of 2013 when we do the title and compensation analysis. That's going to be a really important moment when the rubber's going to hit the road and we decide how much our people work on this campus. And I think it'll be important that we're all part of that conversation, that you guys are the governance bodies.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, thank you for coming tonight.
Director Gardner.
Yes. So taking into account what you're talking about in terms of balance and performance and equity, that the plan is being presented as the governance is being presented is not specific enough to address those concerns, and therefore we have to in place with that plan.
I think it's not specific enough to address those concerns, and until stakeholders brought it up as a concern, it wasn't part of the original plan. It wasn't until people said, this is not good enough for the UW Max, and that we have language around it. So I think we have reason to believe there's a totally tenuous commitment, and I think that there's some changes to the infrastructure, which I don't know, I missed the beginning of the presentation, but we have Wisconsin, Act 32, the budget, which cut funding a lot to the University of Wisconsin, and we also have Act 10, which cut away collective bargaining. So one of the major protections that employees had for their equity as workers is no longer legal anymore. So thinking of asking the university to come up language so that we can have, maybe we're not allowed to collectively bargain anymore, but we should have policies where we can confer, and we should have a plan in place for when collective bargaining is released, what will happen then.
Do you follow? Representative Wickmander?
Pass.
Representative Levinger?
Just to clarify, it's a couple of questions, but maybe you can answer relatively yes or no answer. So what I hear is we need to have conversations about how meritocracy would fit into a plan that potentially would structure discriminate and not really be about equity. And so we need to have conversations about how does meritocracy fit into a plan that's also about equity, and then how does equity and meritocracy fit into the conversation of evaluating teachers' performance.
Right, so that part of the way that the performance will be evaluated is through output. And for teaching, that's very, I think for a lot of the work that most of the people in this university do, unless it's something very simple metric that you're using, like number of dollars won, number of publications written, it can be very hard to pull out what is someone's output, what is their contribution that they made. And I think that can be dangerous because it undermines a lot of the work that.
Do you follow?
No.
Representative Wickmander? Representative Young?
Should this body be concerned about potentially voting down or not supporting this HR redesign and that pushing back the timeline? Do you think that's something that this body should be concerned about?
That's a big question. I honestly, I'm not sure at this point if a vote, I think a vote down may not be, I don't think the plan needs to be voted down. I think the plan needs to be made better. So thinking about the ways that it can be amended to reflect the kind of university that upholds the actual values of the university rather than making sure that stay in pace with its peers.
Do you follow?
No, not this time.
Representative Wickmander? Do you want to come back to your question?
No,
Other further questions,
Point
speaker?
of information.
On point.
What is our ability to amend this plan or change this plan, or other than giving info or feedback, or giving feedback to the plan?
It's my understanding that our primary responsibility staff is suggestions on this. Yes.
Who do we make the suggestions to?
To maybe team is my understanding as well. Yes.
The process for here for ASM is going to be, we'll decide a time, we will have a piece of legislation to come forward and decide what stands in this meeting. I'm going to write that, I'm going to have a draft, and what the idea will be, it'll basically say, we approve this plan based on with the following revisions, and then we will either cut that following revisions and just endorse it as a whole, or we will have an open for amendments. And those amendments will be, we like the plan, except for this. And that's kind of the idea going forward. We will do that before any of those improvements.
Is that your question? None.
Yeah.
Other further questions from the speaker? Representative Young?
How can I get into this body or this body get in contact with you to continue this conversation?
Sure. My email address. Send it out. Yes, send it out.
Do you have a follow-up in the meantime?
Yeah.
Other further questions for the speaker? Seeing none. Okay. So while they're taking care of that, thank you for speaking, by the way. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Next up, we have you're not going to say anything else? Yeah, you got it. Okay. Well, next up we're gonna have where is she?
No, I'm speaking for myself.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll you go again. Okay. Next up we have Aaliyah. To speak, would you like to go together? Both doing. Yes, okay. Sorry. So 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ayla Murphy, and I am representing Cola Hall in this year's Residence Hall Advisory Board. At our first meeting here this past Thursday, we spent a good portion of the meeting discussing the proposed voter registration drive that is set to take place next week in October. So when it was first proposed, representatives from the United Council of UW students sort of outlined their plan of action and anticipated results, and then they opened the floor to discussion. And some of the initial reactions for representatives were a little reserved because people just had some very specific questions. But as soon as those were cleared up and answered, it seemed very clear to me that the majority of the board was in favor of this proposal. I think it's worthy to note that there was a unanimous support, private support from Lakeshore representatives, as we haven't seen much down there in terms of voting tables, and a lot of students really don't know how to register or where to register. So I walked away from the meeting feeling as though, wow, that's great for that proposal. I'm sure it's going to be pushed forward. So you can imagine my surprise, and a few days later I opened my email and I saw a note from Paul Evans saying that the proposal had been vetoed. And I wasn't really sure how that could happen, considering that I believe there are only 5 representatives that voiced dissent in regards to the proposal, and the fact that it was just shut down like that. Also, this was the initial meeting, first time that any of us had even attended for the year, so it's not even as if we had gone back to our communities and gathered support. So the fact that up front it seemed that the majority was behind the proposal, and this was before even checking in with our communities, I wasn't quite sure how that could be shut down right off the bat. And it's my understanding that you folks tonight can reach a resolution that can overturn this veto, and I hope you vote in favor of that.
Thank you. Do you have some questions?
Sure, if you have any.
Other questions for the speaker? Chairman Allen.
I was wondering if you could speak to, so obviously you didn't take a vote, but there were people speaking in dissent. What was their primary concern? I guess I can't see any issue with this. I was just curious what their issue was.
Yeah, I didn't see any big issues, but there were a few voices worried about privacy. The big thing, a lot of female representatives saying, I don't want strangers in the hallways. I don't feel safe when I'm going to the shower. I don't want strangers about my building. And I understand that's the big deal about this proposal because it overrides the standard security policy. However, these are other UW students that are going to be coming in to conduct the registration. And so it's familiar. It's going to be a friendly conversation. And convenience is the big thing in this day and age. Everything's like brought to your door. So I think this is definitely the most efficient way to register a whole new wave of voters, because we don't really have to take any time out of our schedule to leave. Knock on the door, 2 minutes and you're done. And so this is like a precious window of time that's closing. And so I really think this is something that needs to happen for the election, since we're already in an underrepresented demographic. I just was shocked that none of the real concerns, well, there wasn't really a real concern, just minor things that I thought we cleared up. So I wasn't sure how the Director of Housing could turn this down so quickly.
Do you have a thought?
I do. Well, I don't think student safety is ever a minor concern. My question is, would you be agreeable, or have you considered, simply having these voter registration people in open areas like lobbies, in dorm dining halls? Everyone has to walk out the door every day, assuming you go to class, which hopefully you do as a freshman. Haven't given up yet, but if everyone is in these areas and it would deal with that issue of student safety, would you consider amending it so that would be the case instead of going door to door?
That had actually been discussed. Sorry, I didn't mean to minimize the importance of student safety. It was more the fact that I didn't feel that any of the situations that people had proposed seemed to be a real matter of security, more, simple levels of comfort. However, they have voting tables more so in Southeast, right by dorms, so not exactly in them, so it doesn't violate safety policy. But the issue is everyone's always en route. They're going somewhere. They're in a group, and all it takes, a few of that one friend are already registered. No one's going to hold up like, hey, well, go do this right now. It's really the fact that people don't take the 2 minutes to do it. It's really, really tough. So I believe they tried this on several other college campuses. Sorry, I can't cite these specifically. Get back to you on that. And they've had waves of thousands of new voters that otherwise wouldn't be registered at all. So I think this would be a tremendous thing for our campus.
Do you have a question? No, thank you for coming.
Those are questions to the speaker, Director Gardner.
What is the makeup of this board in terms of, I guess, churches, not the church governments, but
The residence hall.
makeup of the board, yeah.
So there are representatives from different divisions of university housing and just residence areas. And then there are a variety of student reps like myself. And depending on like the size of the residence hall, there's 1 or 2. So I'm the only one from Cole Hall. But once again, the initial voices, they were all very positive. And I even just asked Paul after the meeting if we could have an opportunity to go back into our communities and sort of throw out some feelers, either online or just talking to kids in the halls, posters, anything. What do you guys think? Especially coming from Lakeshore, the fact that we don't really see tables anymore. It's tough since it's a larger area and like lower concentration, if you will, of kids running around. The voting tables just in like a general common area aren't as efficient. So this is something that all the Lakeshore reps definitely were behind. It's really a shame to see it shut down.
Okay, I'll do follow-up. So I guess the students that do sit on this board would say that their opinions were pretty directly by director of the
Well, that's how I personally felt, because once again, there was initial reservations, but they were all cleared up by the United Council reps, and I thought everyone was pretty much on board. Well, this is a positive thing. This is something we should do. So to walk away from that and read this email a few days later, I was baffled, to be honest.
Do you have a question?
How do you feel to the Chief Justice?
Your first Chief Justice.
Thank you. I have a question. So, I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern that people to be concerned about this comfort issue, privacy issue. So, in a state that has same-day registration, and when you basically are inundated with requests to register to vote outside, why do you think it's appropriate to support this particular measure?
I'm actually going to go back to one of the early voices of dissent. There was a student saying, you don't understand, we're so busy. The students are so busy. We have so many things to worry about. Like, this is the last thing. There's so many other things occupying our mind right now. So honestly, it's almost sad to say, but I feel like if it isn't brought to your door, so many kids won't take the time. It's not really invasive. The other places that they've tried this before, they were describing that results have been very positive. People are happy to see them, like, wow, I'm sorry, I've been meaning to stop, I've been meaning whatever, but people are just so caught up in their crazy schedules. So feedback has been positive when they tried in other places, and I would give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that people really don't have that kind of time, that if you have to beg people to vote, maybe they have no business voting. But that was more of a statement than a question.
This is a big question, Chief Justice Checker. Representative, back to your question.
Thanks. So I'm a graduate student. I've never lived in on-campus housing. So can you tell me about the design of the doors in terms of like community showers? Are there floors that are exclusive to men or women? Both within the building or the building?
Sure. I can only speak to Cole Hall. I live on the first floor in Greenhouse. So you have 2 little touchpads with your whiz card just to get in. And then we have our big common room. And then we have every other door, it's boy, girl, boy, girl. In one wing we have the men's restroom, other end, women's restroom. And so, I mean, you have the 2 whiz cards just to get in, but you have people from other floors, you're always coming through your common area, the fact that we're on the first floor all the time. And also visitors, people bring by kids that you don't know. You see lots of unfamiliar faces. So I'm not really sure how this would be any different, especially since this is actually for a cause. So.
Do you follow?
Yes. Has there been any discussion about plans in order to inform the residents of the halls that will be canvassing so that they can expect them and potentially plan any changes in their own behavior accordingly?
That was one of the initial questions that came up at the meeting, something I was a little not uncomfortable with it first, but just curious about. And they were saying that they would announce like sort of what times they would be at each floor. So if you had that big of an issue with something, you could just keep your door shut or put a note on your door or something like, I don't wish to participate, something very simple. So seem willing to accommodate, but this proposal was sort of written off, and the Director of Housing seemed to feel as if it was sufficient to send out this email with all this information. But I can speak from experience and from that of my friends that if it doesn't say you have a package in the heading of your email or there's enough free food, you're not going to open it. So I don't know, I don't feel like that's a very efficient way of getting out the word.
I'll get to final questions in a second. But I feel like some of these questions are going to start getting into debate, and we have time to discuss that and debate this and ask questions when we get to the legislation. So please tell your questions very narrowly. Do you have a final question?
Yes, can you just clarify, you said announcing, what mechanism do you have to make announcement to residents?
In response to me wanting to,
You said that an announcement would be made to notify the residents about the upcoming canvassing. Can you just clarify what mechanisms are available to make announcements?
yeah, sure thing. Well, that's something I'm not sure if that would come down to something with the House fellow, but just being a member of this board, RHAB, I would sort of take that upon myself with posters. I know everyone on my floor. We also have like Facebook groups. There's so much online stuff. But in terms of like online media and posters, I feel like word could definitely get out and just chit-chatting about it. Like, oh, hey, did you hear? I don't know, word definitely travels fast. So especially with something with new people in the building, kids are normally on top of that. So I would personally step up, and I think the other representatives would as well that served on this board.
Representative Satan. Chairman Allen.
Yeah, I just had a last question. We can move on. I'll move on. Did you consider possibly having as a way to solve this privacy issue, possibly doing it in a House meeting? Like, since a lot comes in during House meetings and they give their spiel during House meetings, would you consider doing this during House meetings? I know there has to be one before Halloween, which is before the election. Would you consider doing this voter registration during House meetings?
Could I yield?
Any objections yielded to Representative Vines? Hearing none.
I just can't speak in depth to this.
So logistically, scheduling, I'm not entirely sure how many floors there are in total with all the residence halls, but in Celery and Whitty alone, that's 40 floors. So you'd have to schedule 40 House meetings that couldn't overlap. You'd have to have volunteers for that just for Celery and Whitty alone. For all the dorms and every single floor, for every single House meeting, it's logistically completely impossible. And also, I mean, we tried this. I mean, we wanted to get House fellows deputized during the first House meeting. We could run a program like this, and we could have massive voter registration numbers. But Paul Evans, this is something that I think David Gardner worked on last year, and that was, I think, a really great proposal. But Paul Evans unilaterally vetoed that, like he did with this proposal. And then, when we come to RHAB, people bring this point up as a point of concern, and this was never brought to students, which really speaks to a larger shared governance issue we're having in university housing. But to answer your question, I wish we could, but it's logistically completely impossible.
Thank you, appreciate it. Do you follow up? No. Okay, are there further questions to the speaker? Very done. Okay, so next up we have Chief of Staff Nybar to, she's going ahead of people who want to represent our not representative.
Yeah, he's speaking for Hannah Summers. I don't sound anything like her, just pretend that I can hear her. Okay. Hi, no, look at it. Hi everyone, I apologize that I cannot be there in person to speak with all of you. Driving exams tomorrow morning is study for. First, on behalf of the Madison Student Council Coalition, we really need more volunteers for the last 2 weeks of open registration, which closes October 17th. Please put your SRD training to use to help us register voters. I will send Andrew the link to our Google document to send out an email, if he is willing to. Along with instructions, I'm sure you are, Andrew. Along with instructions on our tabling process. We have had great support from members of the Legislative Affairs Committee, but we have yet to see much support from Student Council as a whole. It's on you guys. I hope to see that change in these next 2 weeks, and it'd be greatly appreciated. Second, there is a legislation before you tonight concerning registering students in residence halls. I ask that all of you support this legislation. Potential safety concerns were brought up regarding having students who do not live in the residence halls in the residence halls. To deal with this concern, the Madison Student Vote Coalition will be the ones approving and determining who is going into the residence halls to do the nonpartisan voter registration. There will be a limited number of individuals registering in each residence hall. The clause, be it further resolved, that the list of eligible canvassers will be set and approved by the Madison Student Vote Coalition and will only include members of nonpartisan organizations, is intended to indicate that. If that is not clear, please feel free to make an amendment to make it clear. Otherwise, we will have to share steering about the legislation, and he did not foresee any problems with its passage. Additionally, I personally believe that it is incredibly important for the university help with voter registration efforts, and that it's just one way in which we can present them the opportunity to do so. Thank you all. Please feel free to email me at hjsummers@wisc.edu. Any questions with any questions or concerns. Hannah Summers. I am not her, but I can tell you that nonpartisan voter registration is really important for this campus, and so I urge you all with her to pass this legislation. Thank you. And I do not have myself questions.
Great. Representative Vines, so 3 minutes seems to begin. And there are 2 minutes left over for him, Steve.
Okay.
Motion to extend open forum by.
Motion to extend open forum by 3 minutes.
Okay. Then motion to extend open forum by 3 minutes.
How many speakers are on the open forum?
There are 3 more all speaking to the same thing.
How many of these members, people are members of this body?
None of them are quite yet.
Take one.
That's right. It's been a motion to extend open forum by 3 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
A second? Okay. All in favor of extending open forum by 3 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
You as a chair, open forum be extended by 3 minutes.
Move to extend open forum by 10 minutes.
The motion to extend open forum by 10 additional minutes, and the second, all in favor of extending open forum by 10 additional minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, open forum will end at 9:29. Representative Vines, whenever you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes.
It's nice to be here again. I wanted to speak again on behalf of this legislation regarding canvassing in university dorms for nonpartisan voter registration. But really, speaking to a much bigger issue than that, which is shared governance on university housing. There are a few really important things that I just want to make note of. Again, as Aaliyah said, there was a clear majority of members on the Residence Hall Advisory Board, including a unanimous, including every single person representing the Lakeshore boroughs that said that they were in favor of this proposal. And actually, Paul spoke to me immediately after the meeting. He didn't even wait 2 days, as Aaliyah referred to make his decision. Immediately after the meeting, he said, without casting a vote and with a clear student majority speaking in favor, he said that he was going to nix the proposal. We've also had peer institutions such as the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and the University of California, Berkeley, who run similar programs that have been safe, they've been effective, and they've helped a lot of students get out and register to vote. As I spoke to before, Paul Evans, again, unilaterally shut down a proposal to have all House fellows deputized, which I think would have been great. It would have really addressed a lot of these concerns without bringing it to the student body at all, under the guise that he didn't think that state employees should be special registration deputies, which is something I think he should inform the city clerk, and she might find that a little bit strange. Also, by filling peer voter registration forms to any housing residents this fall, university housing is in violation of Madison City Ordinance 32.065, which is a new legislation that was passed about a year or so ago that requires all landlords to give tenants voter registration forms. It is really literally the least that anybody can do. It's not giving them any direction on how to fill these forms out, or even having somebody come over and pick them up. It's a very, very minimal step that housing, once again, is not abiding by. And more importantly, right over here, statute, what's it called? Wisconsin Administrative Code, or UWS 18.119A, states that the residence halls of each, the residence hall students of each institution, subject to the approval of the chief administrative officer, shall establish policies and procedures assuring that political literature may be distributed and political campaigning may be conducted in state-owned residence halls, consistent with the rights of residence hall students, and prescribing time, place, and manner with these activities may be conducted. Basically, this is talking about political canvassing, which is probably should have even higher scrutiny than nonpartisan voter registration. But more importantly, it's saying these policies need to be set by students. And the fact of the matter is, right now, they're set by administration, who can unilaterally thumbs up or thumbs down any proposal that is given to them without bringing it to students at all. So I think there's a really serious problem we're having here with the makeup of our residence hall advisory board.
I'm sorry, so your time is expired.
You don't need to respond. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Okay. There was other questions?
Yes, I do.
David. Chair McNally.
No, it's a good motion.
Are there further questions to speak with? Representative Wheeler?
Spoke to problems in shared governance within the residence halls. Is there something concrete that you're working on as a way to, rebalance that, or are you asking for help in
I know that there are some representatives of some body that are working on something. I don't know really. I'm not directly involved in it right now, so I can't speak to anything, and I don't know how much there is concretely to be spoken to. But I know that work is being done on that. That's one of United Council's actually statewide campaigns, working across campuses across the state to ensure that students have a say in shared governance in their housing administration. And yeah, that's working.
Do you have a follow-up? Chair Statter.
Could you speak to how supportive or the lack of support, either or, that you felt that the institution has provided for voter registration?
Do you mean the university as a whole or UHS or what?
However you choose to take it.
I'm glad you asked this because I think that while the university has made some efforts to say, hey, you need to register to vote, it's been very lacking. Actually, the interim chancellor board was quoted, I believe it was in the Cap Times, sometime around the recall election when the voter ID bill had not been completely, or at least the ID part of it had not been struck down. And he was asked like what the campus was doing to ensure that students were aware of voter registration laws, things of that manner. And he said that he didn't want to, this is not a direct quote, but he did say this, that he didn't think it was the administration's job to do too much work in voter registration because it could be perceived as partisan, which means he's concerned that somebody's going to complain or somebody that doesn't like the university is going to try and, I don't know, make some kind of lawsuit out of something. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is I think the university has not done a sufficient job in ensuring that students have the information that they need, aside from maybe sending out an email or two, which about 8% of the campus even opens. I think it's enough.
Do you have a follow-up? Other further questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, David. Jesse, Grace, and Courtney, would you all like to go speak together since you're speaking to the same thing, introducing yourselves? Okay. Great. So the three of you together will have 9 minutes. I don't think you'll need that, but you can go wherever you feel free.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Courtney. I'm nominated for Press Office Assistant Director. Just kind of introduce myself to everyone. There's some questions for me as well, but just pretty much say I'm really excited and honored to be given this opportunity. And a little about me, I have a lot of leadership experience throughout high school that led me to finding ASM and to finding interest in it, especially with the Press Office position. Just starting off as subway employee supervisor, and now I'm Shepard's lady dispensing intern. So that's pretty much an overview. I'm excited to be here, excited to hopefully be a part of ASM. So if you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer over.
Yeah, my name is Justin Collins, also Assistant Press Office Director. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I really like this stuff. I have a major in strategic communication, major in school, and also Spanish. And yeah, I'm excited.
My name is Grace. I've also been nominated for Assistant Press Office Director. I'm a sophomore here. I'm majoring in journalism. I'm close to PR practice. So I'm working for a law firm as a secretary, so I have a little bit of office background. Excited to work.
Great, thank you. Do you open yourselves up for questions? Other questions for any of the speakers? See none? Thank you very much, and we'll get to the legislation shortly. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in open forum? Seeing none, open forum is closed. We are adopting the agenda. Any motions to amend or adopt? Vice Chair Giannopoulos.
I move to amend. I move to take up old business and introduction of new legislation, Part A and Part B, right after the reading and the approval of the minutes.
Okay. There's a motion to move. Second. Okay. I would speak your motion.
Yeah, I just think that we should honor the people that have come before us to speak with us and just kind of applaud them as we nominate them if you so choose, and get to things right.
Chairman Gallagher, would you like to speak your second? What she said. Perfect. Okay. Any points of debate? See none. All in favor of moving? Let's make all names consent. All in favor of moving old business A, introduction to legislation A and B, behind reading and approval of the minutes. Any objection stands consent. Hearing none, so moved. Okay, Chair Searing.
Motion to table, introduction of new legislation C, until the next meeting.
Okay. There's a motion to extend, to table introduction of legislation C until the next meeting, and a second. I'll execute your motion.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit more fact gathering and a little bit more discussion. So, but I feel like we can do that in the next week, so we can have the discussion and the vote on that next week.
Would you like to speak your second? Okay. Are there any points of debate on this? Seeing none, the questions are called. All in favor of moving intro new rights C until next week being tabled? I call for unanimous consent. Any objections? Unanimous consent. Hearing none, that's tabled until next week. Okay, Vice Chair Giannopoulos.
To adopt.
So motion to adopt. And a second. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda has been adopted. Are there any motions to amend or approve the minutes? Vice Chair Giannopoulos.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from last week. And a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. We are on to old business A, the student judiciary.
Recess for 5 minutes.
To do a motion to recess for 5 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of recessing for 5 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm gonna call for division, I guess, but please
Point of
vote.
information,
On point.
can the person who voted just explain why?
Why not?
I'm just curious why.
She doesn't need to speak to us, it's fine. So there's been a motion to recess for 5 minutes. Everyone please vote. That's why I'm on this table right now. All in favor of recessing for 5 minutes, please raise your placard. Can't make you raise, I guess. All opposed? Okay, in the ayes of the chair, that carries. We'll recess for 5 minutes, and we'll come back together at 9:30 p.m. You guys have not enjoyed voting or something?
I looked at the people who you were the one advocating for no discretion.
I'd say
What are you doing? Listening to us. Oh, that's scary.
No,
Oh, yes, I have it already. I have our.
Yeah, the internet isn't exactly the best over wireless.
I actually have.
really?
I know. I'm
Usually 2 hours.
I'll just make a quick motion to substitute what you handed out. What you handed out. I'll just substitute. Lori told us the special. I know. Lori told us it's special.
Well, I'll get there early.
You can blame Who is winning?
I don't think it is.
Based on undecided voters.
I don't know if I've been watching too much of the campaign, but they seem to just have been.
Because again,
I feel like I've
what
heard they're both doing fine. Romney, from what I've seen, isn't totally being weird at all.
The thing with presidential debates is that you don't really win, you only lose.
Yeah.
There are no major gaps, I don't think, as far as.
Then this debate will have no influence whatsoever.
I think Romney's doing pretty. I think he's doing a pretty good. Maybe just because the expectations are lower, but he seems to be doing fine.
I loved how the expectations started last week, playing down the expectations.
Yeah.
Just like,
And you should. I don't know if any of you have been able to hear it, but it's so funny. They keep like kind of talking over each. It's actually very nice. It's not like.
Is it a good debate structure?
It's like less structured than like it's not with the dots and you have to stop talking now. They're letting them like actually talk a lot back and forth, but Larry keeps trying to like bump back in and get them on subject. They all keep talking over each other. It's really funny. It's like, what? Let me just. Are you sure?
Yeah, you're right. The other one's in green. Yeah. Where did we go? So you're actually like, yeah. I'm not sure I'm going to say I'm not. Well, I'm not sure I want to. Yeah, exactly. Going with our handshake. Exactly. That's true. No, thank you.
Great. I hurried up to 101 at one point.
Just sitting here.
I was like, why would he go away?
Freaking out.
Okay,
so it wouldn't just be like introduction.
All the way, they were entering all humanities.
So
I was
this is
down
resolution.
and didn't
So
shouldn't be an issue. 2 or so hours.
No, I already.
I remember a half hour before the thing was supposed to start. I was at university, so I think was 6. It was agonizing, and there was nobody else to think. So my friends.
Yeah, it's all the way advanced science, and I got
I was in application.
Yeah, and I remember that started in 5 minutes.
Yes. I'm just informing you.
Yeah, I got in. I got there early enough to, and I got it good enough. I got a good I don't honestly think it's
No, I don't care. I know, but I mean, can there be any initiative in the part of the board to actually do something, or do you want me to like bring it up balance?
Last election, I registered when I was the ballot box, and it took me literally
Yeah. No, it's not that hard to register day of anyways.
Yeah, you guys have the same day.
Like, the main point is trying to get people out to polls. Like, I don't think the point is like worrying about registering.
I think the most argument is like people not having the ability to get to a polling center.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. It's not the fact they're not registered, it's the fact that they can't get to a polling center. They don't know where the polling center is. And this doesn't fix that really. It just gets them, because the person who's going to your door randomly probably doesn't know. Yeah, that's true.
Like people are that lazy, they just walk down Library Mall. People like going around the bathroom, like knock, register to vote. Like, what is citizenship in this country is right? When you have to be begged, taught to vote. No, it's bad.
That's a boring experience. It's like pushing and hurting people to run Ironman.
We should break like a bulwark to your door so you can put your ballot in your door. So they have to voting, right?
What? That's what I Texas.
Yeah. Okay, I'm speaking. I don't care. I have not. I know. I think you read the letter that she sent.
I don't want to like violate something if you have to be like, oh, she's.
No, we don't want that yourself.
Why make it so?
Okay, well, we're going to 6 people here.
Yeah, there's your form right now.
Right, but I
mean, check your seats. Thank you, okay, we are on to old business A, the student judiciary contradiction rectification legislation. Representative Wickbander, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I motion to, for old business A and introduction of new ledge A, motion to consent.
Okay, the motion to consent agenda, old business A, and new legislation A. And the second, ready to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I think that there are both things that we can get done tonight, and we've already discussed old business and new business is structure. And to my understanding, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to get done with that, so it needs to be passed tonight.
Great, thank you. Would you like to speak to your second, whoever?
Yes, she said it perfectly. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so are there any objections to unanimous consent on these two items? Hearing none. Okay, so we're just going to have the people who are sponsoring them just speak to them very quickly so we know exactly what we're passing. So we'll start with Chief Justice Checker.
I think I've answered any questions people have had, so.
Great, Chairman, now your legislation.
You've met our, hopefully, 3 new assistant press office directors, so welcome to the staff.
Great, thank you. Are there any points of debate? Hearing none, the question has been called. All in favor of approving old business A,
Unanimous consent.
and introduction legislation A, is it called unanimous consent? Are there any objections to unanimous consent? Hearing none, congratulations to our 3 new assistant press officers. Moving on, we're on to introduction new legislation B, the voter registration moratorium in residence halls. Chair Siri.
Motion to amend resolution with the handout that was provided by Representative Lyons.
Does everyone have a copy? I don't.
Point of information.
On point?
Is this going to be spoken to as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. There's been a motion. I'm going to introduce it first. I'll know what it is and we'll get to this.
Yes.
Okay. So, Vice Chair Giannopoulos, take it away.
Okay, awesome. So when I refer to the piece of legislation, I'm going to refer to the thing that we will hopefully amend it to, so the single sheet of paper. As you heard the 2 speakers in open forum, a proposal came to the Residence Hall Advisory Board, which I am a member of and have been for a year and a month now, to get a moratorium on the policy in the res halls that doesn't allow for political canvassing. One of the things that really discerns me about Residence Hall Advisory Board in its entirety is that we don't vote on anything. As the speakers in open forum said, we all had a discussion around the table whether we supported this or whether we did not. And at the end, it was just, okay, we had this discussion, moving on. And there was no vote taken, which is really concerning to me on shared governance values and all things of the sort, which I hope this body will fix in the future. But in the present tense, I hope that we can support the Madison Student Vote Coalition and other nonpartisan efforts to register students to vote, especially those in Lakeshore dorms. As the speakers in open forum said, nobody from the Lakeshore dorms had any qualms with what we had proposed. Additionally, a lot of logistics will be put forth to housing. So there are clauses in here stating that the Madison Student Vote Coalition will put forth the names of the people that are going into the residence halls, which is very generous, I think personally. Also, stating the times that they will be there. Obviously, Hannah Summers talked about the Google Doc that she has for the Vote Coalition, so there will be times where they will sign up, and those times will be released to the residence halls as well. In supporting this will have to go to the Chancellor. David read a statute about the Chancellor being the one to have to sign off on this, so that will be the step that will be taken from here. But I really hope that you all support this nonpartisan effort to get students registered to vote, because it is really important. And I think just, being on the sidewalk saying, hey, are you registered to vote? It's really hard. People are running to class, walking by with their group of friends, not really willing to stop. And if you're in your dorm, you not only have access to time, but also access to your driver's license. A lot of people don't even carry their driver's license around. They're like, oh, I really wish I could register to vote, but I don't have my driver's license, so I can't give you the number. So this would just be a mechanism to get more students registered to vote. And I guess right now would be an appropriate time to tell you our vote total for getting students registered to vote. I used a little bit of a mathematical formula, but ASM's total number of voters that we want to see by October 17th is 2,012. So with that, I open myself up to questions.
Okay, we're actually going to honor the amendment first, just because that's what you spoke to as well. And also in the interest of time, there'll be plenty of time for questions, don't worry. So the amendment's been presented. Chair Senior, does add anything to your amendment? We're going to do this first.
Yeah, that to that.
We're going to do this first.
Yeah, Maria talked about a lot of points in it. I'd just like to point out a couple things that were brought up in open forum as well as in the hallway during our recess. The issue of safety is something important to talk about, and the idea of this actually being a nonpartisan effort in the dorms is important as well. But the fact of the matter is that the Madison Student Vote Coalition are probably the closest thing to professional voter professionals who register people to vote. They're the closest thing to that, except for getting paid. They are highly trained and they've been working on these efforts for months. I mean, Hannah Summers, as the head of the Madison Vote Coalition, I mean, frankly, I would trust her with my life. I've known her for 2 years now, and I think that she only works with the most respectful individuals who would respect people's privacy and wouldn't endanger the safety of those in housing. So I think that handing this over to the Madison Vote Coalition and have them work out the specifics of the individuals who are going to be going into the dorms, when they're going to be going into the dorms, I think that that's the right thing for this body to do.
Okay. So the amendment's on the table. Are there any points of debate on the specific amendment? Hearing none, the question's been called. On point?
Can you just say what the amendment is?
I could read it all, but is there a sheet of paper around there? Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'll yield the letter to speak exactly to what it changes.
Okay, so the piece of legislation that's in here, it replaces the whole thing. So it's basically like the same, but it changes a few things. There's a blank for where a number should go. It adds a couple whereas clauses. So basically this is the legislation before you. It doesn't change the intent at all. It just adds a few things to clear up some things that you might not know, like the Madison City Ordinance, another further resolve clause for the Madison Student Vote Coalition was added. So just refer to this document as the legislation and disregard what's in here.
Yeah.
To speak to that really briefly, what's in the packet was a draft, and this wasn't really, it was not like intended to be finished until like 24 hours before the meeting. But it went to printing while it was still in draft form. So this is the final document, and again, the intent is also.
Are there any other points of debate on this amendment before we?
Point of information.
On point.
Are private votes included in this as well? Like stateside or lucky? No.
No, they're not. No. So are there any points of debate on this amendment, Representative McGeown? On point.
Just clear up any,
Yeah, of course.
anything. Is this follow the meetings laws?
Yes.
So,
Because it's an amendment, you're allowed to submit it the same way we submit amendments for anything. Yes. So, seeing no further debate, the question's been called. All in favor of approving this amendment? A point?
Is it possible for like private votes to be included in this as well?
I don't believe so. No. I will yield as well.
Okay, so this only refers to the actual dorms because there are policies preventing canvassing from happening there. That doesn't mean that we can't go into Lucky or Stateside to do that. I don't know what their policies are, but we only have jurisdiction over university policies, so.
Okay, so the question on the amendment's been called. All in favor of approving this amendment, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. And there's a chair that carries. The amendment is adopted as legislation. So we are now in Q&A on the legislation itself. Are there any questions for SFC Representative Vines, Chair Steering, or Vice Chair Giannakoulis, Chair McNally?
Yeah, I just wanted to turn to the be it resolved point on lines 22 and 23 on the backside. I get that that's referring to the university policy about canvassing the dorms. I was wondering if you would be open to an amendment so it's not all university policies, but just that specific policy, so you can't just go into the dorms and not being held liable for all university policies.
Take it, great, smart.
I would consider that. friendly.
Okay.
Real friendly. Will you write that down?
We're still in question and answer, so you guys can take care of that together. Do you have a follow-up question, Chair Pinelli?
No.
Okay. Representative Magion.
Yep. This question, the first question on this. You spoke a little bit to it already, but how would I guess you quell any concerns about this not being a bipartisan effort? I think typically maybe we equate these types of maybe in-your-face registration drives with things along the left. So just wondering if you can speak to why this is actually a full, authentic bipartisan effort.
Well, it kind of speaks to the merits of this Madison Student Vote Coalition. There are people from both parties on the Madison Student Vote Coalition, and I think that they're willing to register anyone from any party. I mean, I've seen many people from both sides saying, hey, will you vote for Obama? And if you say, oh, no, then they don't want to register to vote. So kind of taking away that jargon and that like partisan ask is something that the Madison Student Vote Coalition doesn't do. So that's really how they are bipartisan. They will register anyone, and I think that people on both sides can get behind this.
Do you follow?
Yeah. I guess what would you say to folks who maybe have concerns about this being kind of like shoving down people's throats this opportunity to register?
I mean, if you don't want to be registered to vote, it's your right to not do it. So, I mean, someone's just knocking on your door and saying, hey, are you registered to vote? It's not like they're like, oh my gosh, you need to register to vote, do it now, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. So I don't really think it's like shoving down people's throats. I think it's really just asking them.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Sure. Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's also worth noting that like people, like again, unanimous, every single member of the coalition representing the Lakeshore dorms was really in favor of this, and they said that they really wanted this to happen. There were some concerns from folks like around Southeast. This area's been really saturated. Just like some people have been, oh, I've been asked to vote like 10 times. The fact of the matter is, when we go out there, we're still getting, just standing on any street corner, we're still getting 10 or so registrations an hour, which means that there were a lot of people who maybe, weren't able to register the first time that they saw us, from their license, or weren't able to get through. And also, just one more thing, just addressing a possible concern, that I don't think it's been mentioned specifically yet, but every single door will hopefully be hit. But every single door that's hit will only be hit once. And I think a lot of the things when the first couple representatives on RHAB, Residential Advisory Board, were concerned about, like kind of their people like roaming around the dorms all the time, they mentioned, later they wanted to mention that they were concerned that people would just be swamped and flooding the dorms. I can tell you personally, we don't have the capacity to pull it. We don't have the people to pull that off over 5 days. But we will only be hitting every door once. We'll be on every floor for approximately, depending on the size of the floor, a couple, 5-10 minutes, knock on a door, no answer, next one, and we keep going. We don't have enough time to be, really up in people's faces about this. If they're not home, they're not home, and we'll hopefully get them registered some other way. But, we're going to be in now, and we're going to make our thing quick.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I guess for registration applicants, what work could you do as the external relations officer to maybe quell those types of suspicions of, shoving down people's throats or fears of lack of bipartisanship?
Sure. One of the things I think that would be appropriate for moving forward with this is making sure that people in the residence hall know that Madison Student Vote Coalition exists, for one. Actually, an email was sent out together with Jean Lori Burkham and Hannah Summers out to the entirety of campus. Not a lot of people read those, but it was sent out. So hopefully some people read that, knowing about Madison Student Vote Coalition. But also through the message TVs, a lot of what housing likes to do is put stuff on message TVs. So notifying the students like, hey, nonpartisan voter registration deputies are coming at this time. If you want to be registered to vote, be here, engage, participate. And I think that, some of those suspicions can be suppressed with, just simple knowledge.
Yeah, and just following up on that, again, this is really honestly for me, voter registration is a huge thing for me. This is honestly almost more about shared governance and the ability for students to have a say. This is honestly much bigger than just voter registration. And if the Residence Hall Advisory Board had gotten a chance to actually vote on this, and Paul Evans didn't unilaterally veto this, and they'd given us the proper amount of time to actually implement this, we were going to work really closely. We had plans to work really closely with administration to make sure those announcements were set up. UC was going to pay for just a roll of stickers that people collect from their house fellows for Do Not Knock. And honestly, the process would have been a lot more student friendly. But the problem is, this was vetoed unilaterally by people in housing administration. And we're just unfortunately not going to be able to implement some of those really student-friendly policies that we would have been able to if we had proper shared governance on that committee.
Great. Further question, good chair Kit.
Yes. So you talked about undergraduate housing, but this of course says all university housing. Does that include graduate housing on Eagle Heights?
I don't know if we have the capacity to do that, but do we?
That's the answer. We don't have the capacity to do that at this time, and unfortunately, we only have about barely 2 weeks to get everybody registered, and we still. But I think we're just going to calculate, especially due to how far away it is, that the number of registrations we are going to be able to get for the amount of time we're going to have to be there, for the logistics of getting people forward there and back. I don't think we're going to touch that, unfortunately. I wish we could, and I wish in future years we could have a plan in place at the start of the year to get something like that accomplished. That would be great, but unfortunately, no, we're not going to be able to do that.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Representative Wheeler.
Are residents of Eagle Heights represented on the Residence Hall Advisory Board?
No, they're not. The Residence Hall Advisory Board has serious shared governance issues, and just the title alone, Residence Hall Advisory Board, is a problem in and of itself.
Also, sorry, quick thing, if any of you, if you're around Eagle Heights, people that want to get involved around Eagle Heights, talk to me and I can get them registration forms, I can get them deputized to make sure those people are registered.
Do you have a follow-up? Representative Buchanan.